Hello and thanks for joining me for another video. Today we're going to be doing a little blending brush painting. We're going to create those colorful bubbles you saw on those cards. Now this card is a design team project for Picket Studios. Those adorable mermaids were part of the June release and they are available now. All the details are at the link that's in the description on my YouTube or on my blog. To create the bubbles on that card, I used the blending 2.5-inch circle stencil, and it was perfect for that slimline card. Today we're going to be creating an A2 card, so I want a larger bubble. So I went to my blending stencils and I decided to use the center one, which is the blending 3.5-inch circle stencil. So we're going to use that for our largest bubble. But I want a smaller bubble on the card as well. So I pulled my sun stencils. I'm going to wind up using the sunbeam stencil for the smaller bubble. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off those rays and just use that center portion of the stencil. So we're going to be blending on white cardstock today. This is A2 sized cardstock. And we're going to, of course, be using the life-changing blending brushes. I love these. They're dense and fluffy and perfect for blending out the ink. I'm using the broad-sized brushes today, along with Distress Oxide inks in just these 4 colors. We're going to create a nice rainbow effect with just those 4 colors. So I'm going to tape the cardstock to my work surface. It's important when you're doing this to make sure that you get a nice clean edge to your ink blending. And so I want to make sure that the cardstock doesn't shift at all underneath the stencil. I'm going to also tape the stencil down on top of the cardstock so that the stencil doesn't shift around as I'm ink blending, which will give me that nice, clean, crisp line to the edge of my bubble. So just adding some tape to the edges there to keep that in place, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm using Salvaged Patina as the first color and the broadest of those brushes that I showed you earlier. Going to ink up the brush, and then I'm going to apply the ink right around the edge of this circle. I'm going to blend it in towards the center so that it fades out, but I'm keeping the color concentrated around the edge of the circle. I want a nice distinct blue line. And since I'm going to be adding a little bit of dimension to this, I'm actually blending up the ink a little bit higher along the bottom half of the circle and along the right hand side. This is going to help me as I start to build up my next color, because it means I don't have to use quite as much of the next color to build up the saturation that I'm looking for. So the next color is Peacock Feathers. And I'm going to go ahead and, as I said, put the ink along that bottom half of the circle and the right hand edge. I'm blending it in towards the center, just like I did with the Salvaged Patina, and fading it out as I go in. Once I get that to the saturation that I'm looking for, I'm going to go ahead and pick up that brush that I used with the Salvaged Patina, but I'm not going to put any ink on it. I'm just going to use that to blend out the edges and make sure I have a nice smooth blend. The next color that we're going to pick up is Scattered Straw. So we're going to put this along the top kind of right hand side there, and I'm blending that into the blue so that it kind of melts together on the paper and forms that green color. This is going to give us that rainbow effect. The next color is going to be Kitsch Flamingo. Again, I'm inking up, I'm placing that on my bubble, and I'm making sure that the colors blend into the surrounding colors. Want to make sure that that pink goes into the blue, that the pink goes into the yellow. We get that nice rainbow effect as the inks blend together on the cardstock. So I'm going to come back in with the brush from the scattered straw and make sure that that is blended well between those two colors. And then again with the brush from the Salvaged Patina to make sure that all the edges are nice and soft. We're going to pick up this stencil and you'll see that we have a nice dimensional bubble. So we're going to go ahead and create a smaller bubble. And by adding this sunbeam stencil over the top of the existing bubble and using the Distress Oxide inks, we're going to have a little bit of a transparency effect that's going to make the bubbles overlap and look really cool together on the same card. So I'm using my painter's tape to mask off the rays. Because this is a circle shape and I knew that there was going to be lots of overlapping of the tape, I ripped the tape in half. My tape is fairly wide anyway, so I figured that that was going to give me enough protection to make sure that my brushes did not get ink anywhere that I didn't want the ink to be. And I do have a little bit of a space there at the bottom that is just a little bit on the thin side, so I am going to add another piece of tape there just to make sure. I don't want to have any cross-contamination and have my ink have a funny shape down there. So I'm going ahead and adding the Salvaged Patina again. And I did have a little bit of a heavier hand when I did this circle compared to the previous circle. It actually kind of works because with the smaller bubble, the colors would be a little bit more concentrated. So blending that in towards the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my Peacock Feathers color and add the shadow to this bubble. And now adding the scattered straw color on top of the bubble, making sure again to blend it into the other colors. And then the Kitsch Flamingo gets added again. And then finally, I'm just using that Salvaged Patina brush to blend everything out and make sure it's nice and smooth. So you can still see some of the larger bubble underneath that smaller bubble. I am using the Nouveau shimmer pen to add a highlight to the bubble. So I'm making a nice thick highlight on the left upper side of the bubble. And then I'm adding a small thin line to the bottom right hand side of the bubble. This shows the reflection of the highlight coming through. So on both bubbles, there is a highlight and then a reflection of the highlight showing through. And that's the easy way to make the rainbow bubbles. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it inspired you. If you want to see the cards, you can visit my blog, and have a wonderful, fabulous day. Much love to you all. Thanks for watching.